Welcome everyone to the Moisky News for April the 13th, 2021. Today I'd like to talk about the former United Kingdom Prime Minister David Cameron, who has managed to create enough of a stir that when it got leaked, Boris Johnson had no choice but to order an independent investigation. Over the weekend I noticed the hashtag He's a Tory trending. Now while a lot of it were shots aimed at Keir Starmer for not being enough of a socialist, and no, I'm not joking, the main reason the term was trending was because of David Cameron, who had used his powers to call in favours, with the risk being to the detriment of Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor of the Exchequer's, career. What David Cameron wanted to do was get access to the Bank of England's Covid corporate finance facility. The reason for that was because of a company he not only worked for but also has shares in, called Greensill, which is a financier. Well, was. The accusation, by the way, is that he had $60 million worth of shares in that company before it went bust, which, I'll be honest, is a considerable amount of money for someone like David Cameron to lose. The independent inquiry investigation, whatever you want to call it, into David Cameron lobbying ministers for aid concerning a now-collapsed financier will be led by a man called Nigel Boardman, and Number 10 has promised to give Nigel Boardman absolutely everything he needs when requested, so as to make sure this is as transparent as possible. And this is because when investigations have happened into the Conservative Party, much like the SNP in Scotland, it's been a bit of a joke. Even when all the evidence says one thing, the result says the other, which makes no sense at all. But at the same time, it makes perfect sense, because it's politics. People are self-serving under the guise of for the people. Along with trying to get access to Rishi Sunak, which there are text messages about, David Cameron had also arranged for private drinks with the current Health Secretary Matt Hancock and at least 4 other ministers. So I'm going to take a wild guess. Not Jeremy Corbyn, Theresa May, Jacob Rees-Mogg or John McDonnell. Although it would be quite funny if he had actually met up with Jeremy Corbyn. A spokesman for Number 10 has said, "The Prime Minister has called for the review to ensure government is completely transparent about such activities, and that the public can see for themselves if good value was secured for taxpayers' money. This independent review will also look at how contracts were secured and how business representatives engaged with government." Because of David Cameron using leverage to get to Rishi Sunak, there is a belief that there is possibly a breach in ministerial code, which could then negatively impact Rishi Sunak quite badly. This review will certainly shed light of that, but at the same time the review isn't into breaches of ministerial code. A breach of ministerial code could only be investigated after this inquiry. And I do want to point this out now, the only reason the government is acting on this is because not only was it leaked by journalists, but social media for days have been all over this. So I firmly believe they only acted because of the outcry. Labour, ever the opportunist, have attacked the investigation before it has even begun by claiming that it has all the hallmarks of another cover-up by the Conservatives. Just as with the inquiry into Priti Patel's alleged bullying, this is another Conservative government attempting to push bad behaviour into the long grass and hoping the British public forgets. Which comes from the Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Rachel Reeves. I'm not surprised this didn't come from Keir Starmer because that is the single stupidest thing you can say when the promise has been open and transparent. There are certain things that the investigators themselves have to decide what should be publicly available during an investigation. It's not a case of they're going to lay it all out there for everyone to look at so that everyone can interpret it differently and come to their own conclusions based on their own political bias. Therefore, they don't have to be public with what they decide until they've decided it. The evidence then is put out there in a report. You know this. At this point, based on Labour's own position, they only consider guilt to be a credible verdict, and that they are still a reactionary party with no integrity. Former Prime Minister Gordon Brown believes that a suitable solution would be to ban former prime ministers or anyone that has left number 10 from lobbying government for commercial purposes, which, I'll be honest, is actually a good idea. However, David Cameron left office in 2016 and we're now in 2021. His 5-year limit, by your own suggestion, has been met. Would you like to now move it to 6? Just to make sure Cameron definitely cannot lobby government. Cameron, for the sake of it, has admitted he shouldn't have done this. He's also refuted the claims that his shares in Greensill were worth $60 million. It's interesting that when I was doing research for this morning when I started recording, I noticed another article showing David Cameron and Lex Greensill with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, with many pointing this perhaps being them trying to secure funding to prevent them from going under. As that is speculation, I'm not going to comment on that. It's just really poorly timed. With this, I do want to know what you think. Do you think David Cameron perhaps did the wrong thing? Or do you think that as this is politics, it's not a surprise and the indignation is quite amusing? Please do let me know in the comments down below. As a final little thing, please consider smashing the like button. It really does help the channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. Have a great day. Thank you all very much for listening.